everything else. I mean, if we had multiple abiogenesis events, you would think that the schematic for one form of life would eventually absorb and dominate everything else. So it was a little difficult for me to deal with that. And also, I wanted to know, how did they discern that this new microbe was unrelated to everything else? I mean, what is it? Does it have 5 codons, 3, 15? Does it need a completely different chemical structure? This is what I wanted to know. There's just something that, I mean, in the world of microbiology, when they discovered that there was bacteria and there was also archaea, that was a big damn deal. So now we're talking about something that would be an even bigger division than that, something that is neither archaea nor bacteria nor even, a eukarya or prokarya at all, something completely different. And I was terribly excited about all that. And then the second story that I read, the first story also said that it implied that abiogenesis had happened at least twice that they could confirm on this planet. And so I started looking at other stories because I want to see, how different is this? Does it have DNA? How different is the DNA? How different is it? If it's not related to anything else on Earth, it can be bizarrely different than anything we've ever imagined. And the fact that it uses arsenic in its structure is just the beginning of that. So the next story I get into immediately goes into the fact that it is bacteria, not something completely different. It's just frickin' bacteria related to all other bacteria. It's not even a new kind of bacteria. It's a subset of normal bacteria, and it doesn't manufacture bits of itself or its DNA out of arsenic. It can be forced into circumstances like that, but doesn't do it naturally. So my elation, I was about to burst from, world earth-shattering news here, and my elation was immediately crushed reading the same kind of story as Ida was a year or two ago. The only thing that I can say that is good about that is that within 24 hours, all the news stories that were advertising this fundamentally different form of life and all that, we're now 24 hours later talking about how the scientific community was basically reprimanding NASA wholesale. Everybody, the entire scientific community pitched a bitch over that story.
I'm going to ask you to expand on one point that you mentioned in that, but just before I do, can I just say, if you want to contact the show, send a friend invite, if you haven't done already, to the It's Magic Sandwich Show on Skype. And if you've already done that and it's been accepted, then simply send a message and we'll bring you into the conversation. Please do not call us, though. We will call you. Can I just pick up on one of the things you mentioned, which I wasn't aware of? You said that there was reports of abiogenesis having occurred twice. Technically, there's no reason why that couldn't have happened, is there? It could,
No, there's no reason that it couldn't have happened, but there's no evidence implying positively that it did. And in science, we can't say, it might have happened many times, and you can't prove that it didn't. We don't get to say that. We don't get to assume stuff that isn't indicated and then challenge you to prove that it didn't happen. It doesn't work that way. So we can't say that abiogenesis happened more than once without something to indicate that it actually did. And that's what I was excited about, and then found out, okay, well, we don't have that. I mean, it might have happened any number of times, but we don't have anything that actually implies that. So it would be dishonest of us to say that it has.
Concordance, what was your take on this?
I always approach these things with a big grain of salt. Anytime publicists are involved in science, something's going to go wrong. Cold fusion, evidence of life on Mars, all those things. You always have to just hold off on getting excited about anything. Because politicians or administrators get involved and they want the public to get behind something, so they tart up the actual science. It's a shame that people can't get excited about the possibility of an arsenic-based or arsenic-supplemented bacteria. But when you oversell it, you ruin the actual discovery.
I totally agree with that, but I know that sorry, I've got an echo from somewhere, but is that, I don't know, yeah, that's better.
And why don't we have video? I got confused about that.
because I can't feed it in. Thunderfoot normally does that.
Okay.
The consequence of this, apart from, well, is it going to be more than simply bad publicity for NASA? I mean, I'm thinking someone just actually posted in the comments, Cold Fusion, Pons and Fleischmann, when they published their reports before going through proper peer review, I think that was pretty much an end of their career, wasn't it? Concordance, you may know more about this than Aaron.
No, I don't follow physics.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, there's enough in biology to keep me busy.
Okay, but what do you think the consequences are going to be for NASA? I mean, it's not good for their credibility, is it?
Well, it's
not good for peace scientists, is it? I mean, it lowers the tolerance. The other thing I'm always complaining about, and I've got a video queued up and ready to go one of these days, about headline biology or headline medicine, where they say, bacon increases the risk of a particular type of stomach cancer, and they never tell you what type, by 6-fold, right? So you're 6 times as likely to get this stomach cancer if you eat bacon. Delicious, delicious bacon. And then when it actually comes out, you've got 100 cases per year. And yeah, so, 30 of them are non-bacon eaters, or whatever the ratio is, but the absolute risk is so small that the differences are minor. But of course people start freaking out and saying, oh, we need to ban bacon, or bacon's terrible. There's no sense of proportion. It's the same thing with NASA, right? They have no sense of proportion. They're trying to get people motivated or excited or in favor of legislation allocating more funds towards NASA, because they are seriously in the weeds right now in terms of funding. I was there last year. I don't know, we talked about this in the past, but I'm actually right now a consultant to NASA, which is the coolest thing I've ever done in my entire life. About putting, it's awesome. It's the most amazing thing, but putting real-time PCR on the International Space Station.
So you're responsible for this.
They don't have the funds to move things. They no longer have the shuttle to carry things up to the space station, so they're having to transport them to Russia, put them on a rocket, launch the rocket into space, and the difficulties associated with that, there's completely different kinds of payloads that they're able to move. It is simply because they've been starved for funding. It's been deprioritized. Now, a lot of it's administration. A lot of it is poor management of money. NASA's never been known for being efficient, but they are seriously in the weeds right now. So I'm sure that this was motivated by some administrator who says, what the hell do we have on the table? What can we put out there? We need people talking about space again. Right? This obviously had nothing to do with space.
Just before I go back to Aaron, we've got no one wants to talk to us. So the lines are open, so to speak. Please don't call us, just send me a message on Magic Sandwich on Skype, and we'll bring you onto the show and we'll discuss anything that you like.
I've got a couple of suggestions just based on the people that I see here in the audience, so to speak. Ryan made and had some opinions about this, and my family and I were discussing what would be, if you wanted to send a manned mission to Mars, we got the perfect candidate for this. You would need to have somebody that can stand extreme periods of absolute isolation with no people around. Somebody who is already fully accustomed only to talking to people over an internet connection, and nothing better than that. We're talking about somebody that has to be able to withstand extra arid, dry conditions and absolute isolation in a desert, and I think we've got our perfect candidate we could send to Mars.
Yes, desert file.
And he's in here somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But actually, just on that subject, there are at this very moment a number of people, I think it's 7 or 8, I can't remember exactly how many, who are stuck in a sealed environment which is not dissimilar to the sort of spacecraft that they imagine would go to Mars, and they're going to be stuck in there for over a year. That must be a psychologically very hard thing to do, don't you think?
Well, I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that. I don't know how well I would deal with isolation. I once went spelunking in a very small but impressively deep cave, and I remember a couple hundred yards into this mountain in a cave that was probably about 6 foot diameter all the way through. I remember thinking, well, this is getting a little creepy.
Yeah, I have a panic attack if I get on a lift.
If you keep yourself busy constantly, if you're the kind of person who's disciplined and focused, I think that, you could make do. You'd treasure the letters that you got from home or whatever transmissions, but I think a good percentage of the population would be emotionally prepared for a 2-year journey or whatever 18-month journey. The idea though of leaving them on Mars, because of course the biggest problem is you have to carry enough fuel, or you have to synthesize it when you get there for the return journey. That is the engineering challenge, because of course the more you carry, the more you need to get you there. So it's like an exponential interrelationship. But they're saying if we could just leave the astronauts on Mars, then we wouldn't have to worry about that particular issue, so we take old people, right? But then you've got the rocket going through space with the left turn blinker on constantly. I think that would eat up the batteries.
But see, here's another reason that we should send Desert File. I mean, we already figured, well, we don't really need to bring him back to it. And you talk about old people. The irony, though, of sending Desert File is the one thing that he would have to put up with not having. It's gravity.
Absolutely. We've got someone that wants to talk to us at last. In fact, we've got a couple of people will be coming to you. We're going to start with Hans. I think it's going to be a somewhat change in what we've been talking about, but at least we have some audience participation.
Hello, am I on?
You are indeed.
Great. My question isn't strictly related to what you've been talking about, although I find it quite interesting so far. But it's about whether or not a lie can be a good thing. And just to briefly explain, I've been following the sort of YouTube atheist community for a long time, about 2 years now, and just been really absorbing the information. And this is something that's got me thinking quite a lot recently. Because I've heard quite a few of you say quite boldly that the truth is always better, and obviously in regard to religion, assuming for the moment that it is a lie, I was just wondering what your thoughts are, whether or not the truth might not be a good thing in some cases.
Do you want to express your opinion on it before we go into it?
Well, with regards to religion, I think certainly I'm in a state of mind where I don't really need the comfort blanket that so many people say they do. But for example, that there are a lot of people I can think of who really do need that comfort blanket, who are in that state where they really need the comfort, the artificial comfort that religion provides.
Yeah. We'll go to Aaron, but just before we do it, I think when we say religion is a lie, I think it's fair to say...
Well, not true, sorry, I mean...
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say that most of us think the majority of people that hold these beliefs actually believe them genuinely and honestly. There are some that don't, but Aaron, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I accept that.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of people who somehow had no problem admitting to me that they believe the things that they do because they need to, just as you said. Now, that's not something I can personally relate to, but it tells me that on some level they know, and I suspect this is true about a lot of them, on some level they know that what they believe isn't actually true. And I've got several examples that I can pull to support this. I mean, like the chairman of the board, the famous chairman of the board on our Board of Education, Don McElroy, delivered a speech before a congregation in a church wherein he encouraged them to keep whittling away at that empirical evidence.